What is up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. So good to be with you here on a Friday night. Usually out at the club on a Friday night, but I'm making an exception today to spend the evening with you guys. Largely because I've got a lot of other shit going on in the next couple of weeks, and I won't be doing as many live streams. So I wanted to make sure, just make sure that I kept the content coming. And Blunty, make sure you had content for the live stream clips channel. Right? How you doing? You keeping up okay?
Yeah. We're always need content for the live stream clips channel.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're happy to be here on a Friday.
Yeah. Are you? I mean, I said, hey, let's do a stream on Friday night. And you seem like the kind of guy who, like, if you wanted to have your Friday night clear, you could. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of, like, your social calendar. Trying to put that in the most neutral way I can. So I hope I'm not pulling you away from the club.
Yes. No, I'm going out after this instead.
All right. Because
3 in the morning.
because the stream only ends at 10 o'clock, which is when, like, people who aren't old like me are just leaving for the club. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. People going to the club are still asleep. Interestingly, much like those people, I took a nap from like 6:30 to 7:30 I would lay down. I was on the couch. I was going to watch the TV show with my wife, and then she got a call from a friend. It was like, hey, can you come help me pick up my car from the mechanic? So I lay down on the couch, was getting ready to watch a TV show. She was like, oh shit, I got to go. And instead of like getting up from the couch and doing something else, I just like, oh, I'll just take a nap. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I will still be going to bed at a normal time, though. I'm not as young as I once was. We got to get something out of the way. Right here on the stream, because you're going to notice, you're going to wonder what's going on there with Bardwell's arm. I did a thing. I'll show you a better picture of the thing than is here now. It is fresh ink. Here's what it looks like. It's healing now, so it doesn't look great. Here's what it looks like, though. There's a part of me that's wondering, did he forget to fill in the white on the 2? This is like fresh, right? So it hadn't started to whatever bleed and scab yet. I may need to go back in for a touch-up. So he told, I was really impressed. I really wanted this. I've had this idea for a long time. I really wanted to sort of mimic the pixels of the Betaflight OSD. In fact, I literally pulled these letters out of the actual font file from the Betaflight OSD. And he did a great job with the details. Like, I think, you know, tattooing fine lines and pixels like this is very hard to do. I'm really happy with it. And then he said, if I just put a little bit of white ink inside the letters and outside the letters, then the ink won't spread. The ink won't spread, and it'll stay sharp longer. And it looks to me like we're missing some black ink here, and I'm going to be back in there in 2 months getting it touched up a little. Now, I want to get something out of the way, because multiple people have said that the battery is full when obviously this is discharged. That is not true. This is what the Betaflight OSD looks like when the battery is empty. Okay? I understand why you're saying that, and I freaked out the first time somebody saw that. Said that, rather. I freaked out. I was like, oh God, did I fuck it up? And in fact, no. It matches what... Now, obviously you're looking at it, that looks like a full battery. But in Betaflight, when the battery's fully charged, it's white. And in this tattoo, white is skin. And the black is the outline that's black. So it might have actually looked more obviously empty if I had left it blank, not filled it in, but it would not have been consistent with the actual font, which is what I was going for. Yeah. So people are wondering, like, what's it about? Well, I put a lot of thought into it, as you might have thought. The short version is that it's a reminder. Like in my sort of headcanon, the battery is actually a lithium-ion battery, and so even though the OSD is saying land now, the battery's not empty yet. And the short and sweet version of like my motivation for getting it is that, like, when you think it's time to quit and you think you're done, you probably have a little bit more in the tank, right? But also sometimes, that you got nothing left to give, and maybe there's, you're gonna just, okay, we're just going to keep that throttle up, and we're going to keep flying until the battery drops out from under us. So that's why I picked 3. Like, I want it to be, like, right at 3 volts. I don't know. It could have been 3.03 or 3.0. I don't know. The O2 doesn't really matter. But I wanted it to be, like, right at 3.0 volts so it could represent either a dead battery or a battery with a little bit more left to give. So, there you go. And I wanted it specifically to be the Betaflight font because I know that analog is not, these days you go, well, why wouldn't I get a high definition font? But analog is just so iconic and has been like so central to my life. Like this font has been so important to me for so long that I really wanted to go ahead and sort of memorialize it and sort of lock it in. After 5 years, I don't regret any. I don't regret any of my tattoos. There are tattoos that I have that I look back on the reason why I got them, and I think that maybe wasn't the right. I don't agree with my motivation at the time, but it's kind of like, if you have a scar, it reminds you of what you did to get the scar, even if maybe you would rather you hadn't done that. It's just sort of a part of who you are. So, Anyway, that's that. I got that on my arm. So, yeah, my first tattoo I got, and the reasons I got it had to do not so much with me wanting it, but with me wanting to make somebody else happy. And that's a good reminder. Like, I still like the tattoo, but it's a reminder of a time when I decided to do something for the wrong reasons. And so if I regret it, it's not that I regret the ink itself, but the reasons why I got it. But that's a good thing to remember and know about yourself. Anyway. So now that that's out the way, and it's going to look like that for a while. It's still super healing up. So I think I got to get that too touched up. I don't think there's white. Maybe when it heals, maybe that's like bruising. I wonder if that too doesn't have any white in it, though. It sure looks like that too doesn't have any white in it. Any tattoo experts can comment? I apologize also, I'm going to be coughing like that. I think it's allergies. I don't know. I'm not going to go deep into it. I'm not like sick. I don't feel sick. I don't feel congested. I'm going to be coughing, though. I have a little bit of a dry cough. So, oh, fuck me. There we go. And my camera is dying. Okay. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't look like white's in it. Okay, we got to get that touched up. I don't think I can go back and get it touched up while it's still healing, though, can I? Anybody know? Like, if I'm like, hey, you missed a spot. Could I, like, go back tomorrow and be like, bro, can you just jam a little white in there real quick? Or does it need to heal fully before I get it touched up? Anybody know? I don't know. I don't get like a million tattoos. Okay. Wait 6 weeks. Yeah, okay, I thought so. All right, well, it is what it is. It's just going to be what it is. All right, here's what we're going to do. Now that we've got all the pre-gaming out of the way, Blunty's going to queue up questions. I'm going to answer the questions. Here are the questions. Here's the queue. Blunty's queuing them up. If you guys want to leave a super chat, super chats, hit the $sign right down here. Boom, super chat. That is the way to be sure that I'm going to read your message on stream. Everybody else, if I don't get to your message on stream, don't take it personally. Just email me, jb at joshuabardwell.com. jb@joshuabardwell.com. And, yeah, then you can just talk to me over email if I don't get you on the live stream. We're going to be doing what we can. Here we go. Where would be a good place to get STL files for a Skyliner Mark III? I have a 3D printer. I don't want to buy one from Rotor Riot. So the guy who designs all of Rotor Riot's 3D prints is Noozle 3D. Noozle 3D. You've got it on screen right here. And he has 3D prints for all of the Rotor Riot frames. Rotor Riot, Skyliner Mark III. Boom. Here are all of the official 3D prints for the Skyliner Mark III. Now, you could probably find some prints on Thingiverse or Yegi or whatever, but if you want the official prints, here they are. And hopefully what you're looking for is there. Mason Morton, thank you so much for the tips. Mason Morton, apparently a tattoo artist, recommends 6 weeks before the touch-up. Yep. Great. Let's see here. Where can I buy a Rotor Hazard Atom? Asks Techno. Techno, I have a Rotor Hazard Atom. I have a Rotor Hazard Atom. Yeah, I have one. It was sent to me by Nuclear Hazard. And here's the thing. I don't use it because I always take with me the full-sized Rotor Hazard that has the Ethernet and so forth. So if you would like to buy a Rotor Hazard Atom Techno, you can email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com, and I will pass it on to you at a very, very fair price. It was gifted to me, and so I'm not going to try and like gouge you. But we'll figure out something fair. Email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com, and I'll be happy to find, like, I love passing things on to people who can use them. Black Hole Z wants to know if I'm going to be making any more of the Learn to Fly videos. Yeah, probably. I think those Learn to Fly videos, honestly, just in terms of, the payoff for getting content out on the channel, like I sit down and I record for an hour and I get 5, maybe 6 videos out of it. That's a great sort of, just efficiency in terms of content creation. And I really like being able to make that playlist longer and more valuable. I feel like now that the playlist is up to 15 or 17 episodes, I think that like if you get started on it and there's only like 3 episodes and then you're like, where's the rest of it? You're kind of mad, right? But if you get started on it, I think that like most people aren't going to make it to episode 15 or 17. And so I think that like at this point, I feel a little bit less pressure. Like, oh, I got to make more of that. I do intend to make more, but there's nothing currently queued up. But I'll probably make more. Yeah. Emerald Coco wants to know, what are the benefits of going with an F7 flight controller rather than an F4? F7 flight controller has more processing power, okay? For the most part, that doesn't matter very much because the things that the F7 faster processor lets you do don't have a very profound effect on flight performance for most people. So for example, with an F4 processor, if you want to run bidirectional D-Shot 600, you're probably going to be running at like a 4K gyro and a 2K PID loop, right? That's not as fast as you could run. I think the fastest you can run is 8K 8K, and an F7 might run 8K gyro 4K PID loop. Realistically, I think that almost nobody could actually like blind tell the difference between those two things, even though it does have some effect on the flight performance. Very little, though. So I think that the main advantage of an F7 is that the UARTs are more flexible. On an F4, the UARTs don't support inversion. So because FreeSky S-Bus is an inverted serial protocol, F4 flight controllers have to make special consideration. They have to have UARTs with inverters on them, and sometimes those UARTs are not available. If you're not using FreeSky, they're not available for something else. A lot of times, F4 flight controllers will have fewer UARTs overall than F7 processors. They don't have to, but a lot of times they do. And so the situation with an F4 usually requires a little bit more thought about how many peripherals am I going to have, receiver, GPS, digital video transmitter, etc. And then how many UARTs do I have access to, and where am I going to put those things? And on some F4 flight controllers, like the Xylo Stax that goes in my beginner build series, has only 2 UARTs available, just TX and RX available for anything to use. And the rest of the UARTs are designated for S-Bus or telemetry inverted protocols. They're tied up in that way. And so if you have a GPS and you have a Crossfire receiver, whoop, there's no more UARTs for you to use for other things. And there are ways to work around that. I've got videos about how to work around that, but it does put you in a little bit of an awkward situation. Whereas if you had an F7, you would just have 4 or 5 or 6 UARTs, and you could use them for whatever you want. And so I think that if you're on a budget, buy an F4. You're not really missing out on very much. That's what I would say. What type of TPU should I use for my drone bumpers? I think SaneSmart. SaneSmart is widely said to be the best quality TPU filament. There are other good ones out there, but like SaneSmart, if you want something that is like definitely going to be good quality, it's a good choice. And then I think it's Shure 95A is their TPU. All colors TPU flexible filament. I think it's 95. Is it? Yeah, 95A. So 95 is a good middle of the road hardness for TPU. There's softer TPUs like NinjaFlex, and there's harder TPUs. 95 is what I've always used, and I've always thought that was a good place to be. I mean, like, if you wanted to experiment with harder ones that maybe would be a little more durable, I suppose you could, but I've always been really happy with it. The Raccoon uses Duramic filament. Duramic 3D. Premium PLA Plus. TPU. Yeah, okay. Is it also Shure 95? 3D TPU filament blue. What color do I... What... Can I buy it? 95A. Also 95A hardness. Okay. Travis Two Thumbs wants me to shout out their new multi-GP chapter, Holy City FPV in South Carolina. Okay, got it. WKFPV says eSun's TPU is indistinguishable from SaneSmart. I've heard that. I don't know that to be true personally. I don't know it to be not true. So I didn't want to volunteer that information, but I will repeat it when you say it. And eSun is cheaper, isn't it? eSun TPU. I think it's cheaper. So you could try eSun TPU. 95A, yeah. How much cheaper is eSun? eSun is... Well, I just want to buy it. I don't want to read about it. I don't want to read about it. I want to buy it. Okay? So we got 1 kilogram for $35. And SaneSmart. 95A. GT3 filament. What's the difference? 0.8 kilogram. Let's see. Flat 95A. Transparent. All colors. How about this one? $30. And they're selling it in 0.8 kilogram rolls. That's shrinkflation. It pisses me off. I'm pretty sure this used to be sold in 1 kilogram rolls. So it's $30 for 0.8 kilograms, and they're just hoping you don't notice. That's how I interpret that. $29.99 divided by 0.8 is $38. So the eSun is like it's about 10% cheaper. It's not like that much cheaper, but and only ships from the UK. So that's just ruled right on out. You got any of them? Okay, some of them are in the US, just not all the colors. All right. So there you go. Didn't SaneSmart used to be a kilogram, though? Joseph Dahari says, Pyroflex. Pyroflex is Pyrodrone's white label filament brand, Pyroflex, and says it is SaneSmart. Are you sure it's SaneSmart and not eSun?
Yeah, we talked about it on the news a while back.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I do remember we talked about it. I just didn't remember the conclusion. That's why I'm glad you're here. Okay, so if you're looking for SaneSmart, now what I want to know though, I can't tell. I used to get this purple, this beautiful magenta purple color, and I haven't been able to find that exact color again. And the purple that I ordered, I've actually got another roll of it. The purple that I ordered is like slightly different. Magenta. Oh, well, that looks the same. Oh, no, that's the purple. Okay, well, I'm already happier because that darker purple is the one I really like. And I haven't been able to find it available. So, nice. I think this is it. It's hard to tell. I think that's it, though. Okay. All right, enough about TPU. We're moving on. Chris FPV wants to know, any recommendations for a 100-gram FPV drone with the DJI video system? No. No. That's, like, you can get DJI sub 250 grams, but to get DJI under 100 grams is a real challenge. Does that even exist? Like, was there a DJI Mini that was under 100 grams for Japan? I don't think so. It was under 250 grams and only just barely. Is there any DJI drone under... Okay, well, it does exist. So it looks like the Pavo Pico from Beta FPV is under 100 grams. It's not terrible. I did test the Pavo Pico. It's not terrible, but my God, you're giving up a lot to get that under that weight. What about the what's the Flywoo microdrone with the naked no, I'm not going to remember. Drones, Cinewhoop, no, microdrone. The Flylens, that's it. Is the Flylens under 100 grams? DJI Vista 2S, let's find the naked one. Flylens naked. Naked Flylens. 03 Lite HD0, no. 03 Lite 2S brushless whoop. Is that the naked one? No, that's not naked. Is it under 100 grams? I bet it is. How much does it weigh? Yeah, there you go. 80 grams without battery. I bet that's under 100 grams. So I would steer you towards something like this. Something like the Flywoo Flylens. Now, there is a naked version of the Flylens where the O3 is taken out of it. There it is. Now, this is going to help save you even more weight, but at the cost of some durability. And so it's kind of a tough call. But, like, this is what I would be looking at. Something like the Flylens 85. Is that also under? I think it is. Weight. Lightweight 2S battery. Where's the actual numerical weight? I just want the numerical weight. It's not going to tell me. Yeah, here we go. Small size, lightweight, less than 100 grams. Perfect. Okay, that's the one I would steer you towards. That would be my
Also,
personal choice. Yeah, Blunty.
So note the Mobula 803 is also 80 grams.
Yes. Also a good one. So personally, I would go for a naked 03, and I would just cross my fingers with the durability. Although, just because I think that the compromise in handling on something like this is going to be substantial. But not everybody just wants to throw around that YouTube money like I do. Yeah. Okay. Good question. A sub 100 grams for the Japanese who want to avoid registration. Polex asks, what if lithium ion goes below 2.9 volts in battery sag? VTX cutoff or whole quad cutoff? I fear pushing my 4,000 milliamp hour battery over 2,300 milliamp hours. But at 2,300, it still says 3.5 volts, like 3.1 when landing. So here's the deal. Your lithium ion battery, and you probably know this, but in case people don't, lithium ion batteries, one of the big advantages is that they can be discharged. The absolute minimum is, I think, 2.5 volts, whereas on a LiPo, it's 3.0 volts. However, just like a LiPo, before you get to 3.0 volts, it just drops off a cliff. The same thing's true for lithium ions. So practically speaking, a lithium ion, in my experience, gets down to about 2.7. And then below, somewhere between 2.7 and 2.5, it's pretty useless. But the battery's not actually being damaged till it gets down to 2.5. So what's happening is that your VTX is cutting off. Now, why would your VTX cut off? I wonder if you're just speculating and you haven't actually experienced this. Because the thing is, all quadcopters are going to be running off a voltage regulator or battery voltage. So if you've got a video transmitter that runs off battery voltage, it's probably good down to 7 volts. Most of them are good down to 2S. So if you're running a 4-cell battery, right, 4 times 2.7 is 10.8 volts. Your video transmitter isn't going to cut out. And if you're running a 6-cell battery, it's really not going to cut out. And if you're running off a voltage regulator, again, that voltage regulator isn't going to have a problem until you get down close to, let's say, 11 or 12 volts. So it depends on what exactly your quadcopter setup is. If you have a 9-volt voltage regulator and you're running a 4-cell lithium ion, theoretically, that voltage could get low enough that the 9-volt regulator might have a problem. But under most real-world situations, you're not going to have a problem. And you're going to be able to run that battery all the way down until it's completely dead with no issue. The only place where you might have an issue would be if you're running like one of those quadcopters that has just a little 1S 18650 cell. And at that point, things are a little sketchy. Like, some of them may drop out if you go below 3.1 or 3.0 volts. But again, the design of the quadcopter should take that into account.
I just want to point out that if you have a fairly modern power supply, a lot of them can supply voltage over the power supply. And you could just sit there with the quad hooked up and slowly lower voltage until you see what happens.
Sure. Or you could just hover it. That's what I would do, probably. Just take it out, have the battery, one day, don't charge the battery. Just have it at storage, 3.8 volts. Or you just go out and fly it until it gets low. When the battery starts getting low, like around 3.2 volts, 3.3 volts maybe, bring it in close, hover it, and just keep running it down. And that's what I did when I wanted to test lithium ions. And somewhere around 2.7 volts, I noticed the throttle got really slushy and the voltage started dropping off really quick. And I was like, okay, that's it. Right? But I wouldn't expect your video transmitter or your quad to just cut out. They should be fine. I just saw this question from Freaklight, who asks, why is there more O3 Tiny Whoops and mini drones versus Walksnail? Walksnail is lighter and cheaper. Interesting you ask that. There was a growing a wave of Walksnail binding flies. GEPRC had a bunch of them, comes to mind. Not a lot, but more than there are today. And then one day, a bunch of them went away. I'm not going to say they all went away, but almost all of them went away. Beta FPV had a Walksnail binding fly. And Blunty, I can't remember if we had confirmation of this. Like, what was our degree of confidence? Because there was a rumor, maybe a confirmed rumor, that DJI went to manufacturers and said, we don't want you to sell Walksnail binding flies, and incentivized them to do that. And I don't know whether it was threats or it was the carrot or the stick, but basically a bunch of Walksnail binding flies just got pulled off the market. Go ahead.
That was a claim by Walksnail. That's the only source for that claim. No retailer ever confirmed that. What I'll say is, like, there's two scenarios here. One is like, yes, DJI did this. The other is DJI doesn't care about Walksnail at all, and these retailers found out that when they made binding flies, they didn't sell, and they had a bunch of shit sitting on the shelf. So, like, I think you could see either thing as being true, right? Because Walksnail sell-through is clearly way lower than DJI. I don't think anybody would dispute that, right? Like, the question is, what does sell-through have to... We saw this with HD0 too. What does sell-through have to be to make it worth making a binding fly, making multiple binding flies, making a line of extra SKUs that you have to build out, set on the shelves, factor into the cost of goods and all that stuff. So I think I would guess that a lot of it is driven by the sell-through rate versus the O3 and things that are way more popular. But that's just my guess.
Okay, well, thank you for that perspective. I couldn't remember whether we had gotten some, like, off-the-record comments from retailers, but you're telling me it was just Walksnail making this claim, and it's worth acknowledging that Walksnail might have other motivations. Like, if these manufacturers did this, they made a bunch of Walksnail binding flies, and then they didn't sell, and the manufacturers said, "Hey, Walksnail, we're not gonna make any more of these. They're not selling." Then Walksnail might have gone, DJI coming after the little guy, to cover up the fact that they just weren't selling. On the other hand, that 100% sounds like something DJI would do. Like, DJI makes good products, but also there are many stories of DJI doing kind of shady, competitive, or some would say anti-competitive things. And like, if DJI were to say, hey, look, if you give us exclusivity, we're going to give you an extra percent margin. It's your call. Like, is that shady or is that just competition? Opinions will vary. Like, if I had to guess, I would guess that DJI wouldn't go. If I were DJI, which obviously I'm not because I don't have $27 billion, so clearly, what do I know? But if I were DJI, I wouldn't go to a manufacturer and say, you're not allowed to sell our competitors. And if you do, we're cutting you off. Because that sounds like, oh, I'm scared of them, right? And also, it's like I'm threatening. I would just be like, hey, guys, yeah, we got a special margin for people who don't sell our competitors. It's up to you. I don't know. Then I have to pay somebody an extra margin, and that's never good. But we don't know. We don't know. But what we do know, because we can observe the facts, is that there was a time period, maybe 2 years ago-ish. That's Blunty. I don't know if you know better when this was. But there was a time period, maybe 2 years ago-ish, where, like, GEPRC had a whole bunch of Walksnail binding flies, Beta, FPV, etc., etc. And then, like, suddenly, they were just gone. And we heard this rumor. Okay. The Raccoon FPV says, I'm printing TPU on an Ender 3 with a direct drive extruder and a filament dryer, but there's too much resistance from the filament dryer. Well, Raccoon, there's two things you could do. One of them is you could, like, get a better extruder. So I'm guessing what's happening is that the extruder is pulling the filament and the filament's stretching. I don't even think, like, that's the extruder's fault. Like, if the filament is literally slipping, then maybe like a better extruder with the better gear or something that grips better. I don't know. But the thing is, like, TPU is flexy and soft and it's going to stretch. So it sounds like your filament dryer is just kind of crappy. So do you have like an excessively long Capricorn tube going between the filament dryer, and so there's like a lot of friction? Like, what's your situation? Right? I will show you guys, I recently got turned on to this filament dryer, and I have to tell you, it's freaking amazing. And like, I've used several other filament dryers. I'm not going to claim to be like 3. Okay. So like, I haven't, like, I'm not like Mr. 3D printing with the filament dryers, but a guy I know who is more of a professional 3D printer turned me onto this filament dryer. It's okay. Now it's expensive. The big one is $200. It holds 2 rolls. And there's a smaller one, I think is a little cheaper. Large spool kit, double wall. No, that's just the wall. You can get an additional chamber that ups it to 4 rolls for another $50. So definitely not cheap. But like, it's so good. First of all, the heat goes up to like 85 degrees Celsius. Yes, it says 85 degrees Celsius. It's one of the highest temperatures. So especially if you're printing ABS or nylon, where you really need a higher temperature to get it like properly dry. And like, it's a little hard to show you without the pictures. Can I find a better picture? But oh, see, look, all, you know, very accurate temperature, blah blah blah. It actually puts the roller on these ball bearing spools, and so like, there's very, very low resistance on the roller if you're printing from it. And then the other thing I like about it is that the lid just lifts off. So if you have to get in there and like mess with your roll or something, you just kind of lift the lid off. You do what you need to do. You put the lid back on. There's not a lot of shenanigans to open it up real quick. I was trying to print PAHT CF, so carbon fiber nylon, and was having all kinds of problems. And I put it in my dryer, and I set the dryer to, I don't think it quite got up to 85. I think it got up to 65. But I put it in the dryer, I cranked it all the way up, and I let it sit for like 48 hours. It still wasn't printing right. And when I started using and this friend of mine was like, yeah, you're using the wrong dryer. Use the dryer I told you to get. I was like, but I bought one, and it's been really good to me. So, big fan of it. $200 though. I will tell you a secret. If you buy the print dry, one of the reasons I resisted the print dry is that it has a timer that can be turned up to, like, I don't know what the maximum time is, 12 hours, 14 hours, whatever it is. And I want a dryer that will just stay on forever. I just want it to be running all the time, and when I'm ready to print, my filament is dry. If you adjust the time on the print dry down to 0, it just stays on forever. And this was discovered. I didn't know this, and it wasn't obvious at first. So now I'm so happy with the print dry. Here's the thing that I wondered, and obviously my experience should be the answer, but they say you need like 85 degrees to dry nylon. It seems to me like if you put nylon at 65 degrees, it will still get dry. It'll just take longer. Is there a reason why you have to have a minimum threshold temperature to get nylon to dry? Like, nylon just doesn't dry out at 65, but it does dry out at 85, no matter how long you leave it? Is there like something going on there? Can anybody tell me? Anyway. Rick LaBanca, to get nylon, are you printing nylon? Rick LaBanca says, I put filament in a sealed bin with desiccant. Seems overkill to do anything beyond that. If you're printing nylon, I think you need a little bit more aggressive heating to get it to be dry. I don't know. That's my experience. Everybody's experience is different. Let's do Super Chats. Oh my God, we've been going for almost an hour, and I haven't read Super Chats. Holy shit. Yeah, I don't think that desiccant alone is good enough for nylon. Everybody has their own experience, but yeah. Here's some Super Chats. Guys, I'm so sorry I went this long. It's a Friday night. I'm, getting loose with the juice. I don't actually have any juice. But here we go. Travis Two Thumbs, thank you for a $5 Super Chat. Oh, I shouted out your multi-GB chapter, Travis. Thank you for the Super Chat. Ringlers TV, what's the best 8S stack to run in a 5-inch frame? Thank you for $2, Ringlers TV. Ringlers, if I were building an 8S quad today, I would choose the Foxier Reaper stack. The Foxier Reaper can take up to 8S natively, so the ESC is good for 8S, and the flight controller is good for 8S, which means you don't need a separate voltage regulator to power your video transmitter, and that's a big deal to me. So I would go Foxier Reaper. I don't actually think there's another competitor out there. There are very few flight controllers that can take 8S natively. Foxier is one of them, and it's a good flight controller, and a good ESC. How do you know when a battery is no longer usable? Asks Caleb Beck. Thank you for a $2 Super Chat, Caleb. If the battery sags a lot and gets hot and puffy, then I start to think about not using it anymore. As long as while I'm flying, I don't notice excessive battery sag, and as long as I'm getting flight times where I'm not going, damn, just, if I could take a 5-inch freestyle quad and I go out and fly and I get 5 minutes of flight time, then I'm like, I'm happy. Like, could I have gotten 6 minutes or 7 minutes on a brand new battery? Maybe, but I'm not mad about it. And then while I'm flying, if I punch the throttle and it goes, low voltage, okay, I'm good now. Low voltage, okay, I'm good now. Right? That's excessive voltage sag, and I'm probably going to notice that. It's really based on, like, what I notice while I'm flying. .661 FPV. Our Ciadian bot grinder also streaming right now. Woo! That's a hell of a lot of competition. Verbalance, thank you for a €5 Super Chat. In a new build, buzzer starts beeping at power up and doesn't stop. I think you've wired it wrong. I love it. And by the way, I haven't double-checked your wiring, so I could be wrong about this. I'm going to double-check your wiring in a sec.
You're correct.
But I love it when people say, wiring is correct, and then they proceed to explain the wiring that they've done that is incorrect. Like, I know you think the wire... People are like, hey, my receiver doesn't work. And I say, can I see a picture of your wiring? And they go, yeah, the wiring's correct. And they send me a wiring diagram, but not a picture of their actual wiring. And I go, hey, I don't want to insult you, but can I see a picture of your wiring? Yeah, I wired it up according to the wiring diagram. That's not the issue. Okay, but humor me. Oh, it turns out you wired it up wrong. So you've got battery minus to black, battery plus to red, and ground to yellow. Yes, you screwed up the wiring. Battery minus should be the signal wire, because that's what tells the buzzer when to go off. That should be yellow. Ground should be black, and the ground is used to charge the built-in little 1S battery. So the yellow wire is ground for the buzzer, and the black wire is ground for the charging circuit. And you have reversed them, and that's why the buzzer is going off all the time, because you connected the signal wire to ground. I used the manual, he says. I bet he didn't. I bet. So, like, either there's a typo in the manual or you misread the manual. Either way, you've got it wrong. And the fact that it starts buzzing as soon as you plug in confirms that it's wrong. So, there we go. Anyway, swap those wires. You'll be good to go. That's what I think. And go look back at the manual, and maybe you'll see that you read it wrong or remembered it wrong. V-Fly 2. He says it's the V-Fly 2. Like, I'm not saying the manufacturer didn't screw it up. 100% they could have screwed it up. Nope, they didn't screw it up. I didn't think they did, really. Like, they could have, but I didn't think they did. Yellow to buzz minus, ground to ground, buzz plus to 5 volts, red to buzz plus. The wiring is correct. The SpeedyBee wiring diagram? Okay, we'll check it out. Well, now, between the flight controller and the buzzer manufacturer, whose wiring diagram are you going to believe? But let's see if SpeedyBee screwed it up.
F4 or 5B3. F4 or 5B3.
Thank you. Chasing down typos in manufacturer's document. See, the beauty. I'm so happy right now because no matter what happens right now, number one, I solved the guy's problem, so I feel good that I helped him. And now, no matter how this comes out, either I'm going to find out the manufacturer screwed up the wiring diagram and I'm going to feel like a smart cookie, or I'm going to point out that this guy read it wrong and I'm going to feel like a smart cookie. I can't lose right now. The only way I could lose if I look like a jerk for being too smug. But I feel like that's a problem that I live with daily. Where's the freaking diagram? Where's the wiring? SpeedyBee. Where's the? I'm just gonna scroll forever. So here's the standard buzzer. Okay, I know what you did. You're looking at this diagram for a standard buzzer, but you're using a self-powered buzzer. And that's the difference. The standard buzzer does have ground on buzz minus and red on buzz plus. But a self-powered buzzer uses a different wiring convention. That's what happened. So, that's what I think happened. Cache. I'm going to assume your name is Cache and not Cash. Black Jungle! Black Jungle, I love it! It's so good to see you, man. Black Jungle makes memes for my live streams. Black Jungle, I'll have you know. Well, hold on. Pause the question we were reading. I want to show you something. Where is it? Black Jungle. Look at this. Can you guys hear this? Hold on.
My name's Jason, and I'm a friend of Josh's.
Okay.
I am a drone dude. I've been doing drones since, 2017, I think.
Tidwell FPV.
There we go. Just a handle. No name, no address, just a handle. John, you know a thing or two about FPV drones?
Yeah. I've been flying since the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. Wrecker Shack from Atlanta. I fly FPV for about 7 years now.
Brian?
You fly FPV?
I do.
You have a guess as to why you're here.
I do.
What is your guess?
I'm guessing, I think Brazilian maybe, and it might be made out of plastic.
Oh, damn it. You watch my channel. Damn it. No, that's cheating.
What? Is this supposed to fly?
Okay. Wow.
It's coming. It's coming, Black Jungle.
Not gonna work very good. That is super light. That's my first take on it. That is incredibly light. I like it.
Well, it's light.
It's coming, Black Jungle. The video, after all these months, maybe of as much as a year, it's coming. I finally finished the video about your quadcopter. Oh. Hey, Black Jungle. Guess what, Black Jungle? I went to fly it. I'm going to spoil the end of the video for anyone who's watching this stream. I went to fly it. I made the whole video where I talked about the reasons why we don't build quadcopters the way you built your quadcopter. And all the things you did wrong. And then I took it out to fly it. And it took off. And within 3 seconds of taking off, the ESC blew up. And one of the FETs just turned into a smoking crater. And like, I know... I think you built that exact same quad and you flew it. But that little 16 millimeter flight controller was just like, no! And it just died. It didn't fly for 3 seconds. And it lit on fire. And I was just like, okay, I'm done with this thing. I'm releasing this video. Like, that's just it. Like, if I really cared, I would put a different flight controller in it to see how it flew. But I was just like, nah. Oh, did yours blow up too? It flew one pack, he says. Yours also blew up. Okay, well. Okay. Oh, yours worked. Then he sent it to me. I don't know why mine blew up. It was for 6S, right? No, I'm joking. It was 4. I had a 4S on it. When using the multi-shot motor protocol, thank you for a $10 super chat. Cache. I'm going to read your name as Cache, not Cash. When using the multi-shot motor protocol, is there a way to activate the ESC sensor for ESC telemetry? The option disappears and I can't get my ADC to calibrate correctly. Thanks for all you do. ESC telemetry only works with digital protocols. Because the way ESC telemetry works is periodically the ESC pauses and the flight controller says, hey, send me telemetry data. And then the communication goes the other direction, the ESC, but the telemetry is carried over the signal wire. If you're not using a digital ESC protocol, which D-Shot is basically the only one in common use. There's another one called ProShot, but I don't think Betaflight even supports it anymore. If you're not using D-Shot, then you can't do ESC telemetry. The big question is, if you have an ESC that supports D-Shot, which presumably you do, why are you using multi-shot? Like, there's like, I can't think of a reason why you would need to use multi-shot, except that your ESC doesn't support D-Shot. And by the way, if you're building a multi-rotor and you're using an ESC that doesn't support D-Shot, stop and get a new ESC, because like, that's like every modern ESC with the performance capabilities that it's designed for a multi-rotor will support D-Shot, should support D-Shot. Oh, that's cute. Where is that one? Here's a comment from Skimashhead. This is what I'm talking about. Building a drone and flying it. If I hit some shit, does that mean I have to buy a whole new drone? Like, what parts should I buy in bulk? I can't afford to throw away $300. So good news, if you crash your drone, you probably don't need to buy a whole new drone. Best case scenario, you break an arm, you have to buy frame parts is your best case scenario. The camera lens is another common break point. If that's an analog camera, it's no big deal. It's like $12, $15 for a new camera lens, maybe less. If it's a digital camera, it can be more expensive because you may have to buy a whole new camera. The DJI O3 is the worst at this because you essentially end up replacing the whole camera just to get a new lens, and that's like $100. Motors break fairly commonly. So, you know, $15, $25 depending on how much your motors are. A good quality flight controller and ESC installed correctly in a frame should take a lot of abuse, although occasionally the ESC will die. But here's the thing. You're probably not going to throw away $300 on a single crash. But you are 100% going to throw away $300 before too long. The FPV hobby requires constant injections of money, almost always. Somewhere out there, there's a dude who bought a little tiny whoop, or who bought a little, 3-inch quadcopter, and he only flies it on Sundays very carefully, and he never crashes it. He just flies it very slowly, never crashes it, takes it out, flies it around, lands it, takes it home, and he's been flying the same drone for 2 years. That's the exception. If you're pushing yourself at all, you're going to crash and you're going to break shit, and you're going to constantly be buying new shit to repair the shit that you broke. And so you're going to go through $300. And I'm not saying, like, there definitely are people out there who go through $300 in a month. Shh, don't tell their wives. I think that's probably not typical. I think if you were to budget $50 to $100 a month for your FPV hobby, I would say that would be like the minimum in terms of consumable parts, propellers, motors, batteries. You're going to destroy all of these things, and you're going to need to buy more. And my guess would be $50 to $100 a month. And obviously if you run out of money and you don't fly for 3 weeks, then obviously you're not going to break anything. But if you're just regularly out there every weekend flying or after work during the week, I think that's sort of like the baseline for what you want to think about being able to spend. And then occasionally you'll just blow $600 on some new thing because it was cool.
Yeah, also, I think you kind of touched on it, but just to make it a point, like, if you fly at a park slowly and cinematically, and you have a drone that's like a 5-inch that's built well, you're going to break that way less than you're going to break, like, some plastic ducted whoop that's like 3-inch and that you're jamming through holes at the IKEA parking garage. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you really have to think about what you're building and why you're building it and how you're going to fly it. You can break arms on grass and you can not break stuff on concrete, but it's just like there's levels to all that stuff.
Yeah. The thing is, the more you push yourself to be a better pilot, the more money you're going to spend on breaking things. The guys I know who have gotten very good very fast, the consistent factor is that they have spent a ridiculous amount of money. And it's not that they spend money on like high-end shit that you can't afford and that makes them good. No, it's that they go hard. They try a trick, they crash, their quad explodes, they throw it aside, they get another one because they came with 5 quads today. And they go home, they come with 5 brand new working quads. And they go home with 1 working quad that's beat to shit and 4 exploded quads. And then they go home and they just fix those quads. And then they show up the next day with 5 beat to shit but still flying okay because they cobbled them together last night quads. And then they go home at the end of that day and all those quads are exploded. And every night they're going home and they're putting 3 motors, 1 ESC, 1 camera, 1 broken arm. And every night, maybe, they're spending $50 or $100 in parts. And I'm not saying you have to be able to do that, but I am saying that if you can do that, you will get much better, much faster, because you will be able to do things that push your own limits. And if you're not pushing your limits, you're not improving as fast.
Also, I just want to add one more thing here, which is that there's a variable here, which is you're building this. So this could go from you build it great and everything's wonderful and you have a great drone that's super solid and you're not going to have any issues other than how you crash and stuff. But there's another world, like my first drone, I fried a stack the first time I flew it after 3 minutes. And then I flew it 10 more minutes and fried another stack. Both of them were my stupid mistakes from how I mounted it. The first one, I mounted the bottom plate upside down, so the ESC hit the the nuts in the frame that were like poking up under the ESC, and it cracked a FET. And then, you know, my other one, I tried to do a stack converter. So I had a smaller FC and a bigger ESC, and I used 2 loose of TPU. And in a crash, it all slammed to the side, and I broke the flight controller and the ESC.
Yeah.
So, like, you got to be considerate of, like, you could make mistakes. You're learning how to do all this. So, like, again, you have to be used to burning $300 if you have to burn $300.
Yeah, you have to learn from your mistakes. And if you're smart, you will pay very close attention to how professionals build. And like when I teach people to build, I sometimes get really self-conscious about, because they'll be building and I'm like, well, if you just turn that screw a quarter turn so the threads are facing the other direction, you know, some little, not literally that, but some little nitpicky thing. Well, I think you should run the wire under here. And I realize that all of these tiny little nitpicky decisions that I make when I build add up to a quadcopter you can beat the crap out of, and it just keeps coming back for more. And each of those little decisions is informed by some mistake or some way that I broke a quadcopter in the past. And to somebody who's just learning to build, I can imagine them going, what does it freaking matter? Like how you mount the antenna or how you run this wire, you know? And yet it does. And so a person who is able to pick up on that stuff quickly is going to do well. On the other hand, sometimes you see a person who goes, I've blown up 3 flight controllers in a week and I don't think this hobby's for me. This is all a bunch of crap. It's like, well, if you blew up 3 flight controllers in a week, chances are, no insult intended, chances are you did something to blow them up. And if you're not willing to look at that and go, why are these blowing up? How can I prevent this from happening? If you just go, well, then this is not the hobby for you. Anyway. Going back to the question from Cash, or Cache, as it were. He says, it's a 60 amp T-motor ESC and I get error messages when I select anything other than multi-shot. Okay, stop. Okay? What's happening here is, it's like the fire alarm is going off. Beep, your building's on fire, beep. And you respond by taking down the fire alarm and pulling out the battery and going, well, that problem's solved. The error messages that you're seeing when you select D-shot mean that their communication between the flight controller and the ESC is not working. Okay? So then you select multi-shot and the error messages go away. You haven't fixed the problem. You need to fix the problem. Okay? You're just silencing the smoke alarm. You haven't put out the fire. You need to put out the fire.
Email.
Yeah, this is an email problem. Email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I've already thought of 1 or 2 things that might be causing your problem. Like, Blunty, we were just talking about D-shot bit bang, weren't we, Blunty?
Yes.
Uh-huh. I already can think of 1 or 2 things that are probably might be causing your problem, but don't use multi-shot. For God's sake, don't use multi-shot. No. Doug McLeod, thank you for a $5 Canadian super chat. Big ups for Blunty. He's perfected when to interject with additional info during the Q&A. I agree. I agree, Blunty. You always bust in with some good knowledge and stuff. Thank you. And then you, like, unlike me, you also know when to shut up. Which I'm not. I still haven't figured that one out. Ike Queen F. Yeah, nothing? No, I was going to say nothing there. Yeah, what's up?
jb@joshuabardwell.com is your email, right? That's the one you want to use?
Yeah, what did I say? I have more than one. Okay,
I just want to make sure we got the right one.
That's the easy one to remember. jb@joshuabardwell.com. It's easy to remember. It's easy for me to remember. Ike Queen FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. I've lost 2 tiny whoops because the batteries ran out before I could find them. Is there a buzzer with its own battery that I can use on a 75mm tiny whoop? Like, I mean, maybe. The buzzers are kind of big for a 75 millimeter. I guess you could wire it up, but like just the weight alone is going to make me cringe.
I mean, this could be an 03 tiny whoop. You know what I mean? We don't even know. So like, we live in a world where we have
You're not wrong.
Giant tiny.
Yeah, so just get a V-Fly finder and wire it up. I guess. Pacific Northwest, how do you christen a new tattoo? I'm not familiar with this tradition.
AirTag, if AirTag's light, an AirTag is not a bad idea, or something like external, like a tracker or something.
Yeah.
Might be a decent option.
Oh my God. Did you know? I think that Android is finally starting to do a Find My Device network similar to Apple's AirTags. I just got a notification that like this new feature would be turned on unless I opted out. I'm so excited about it. That they're going to use other people's devices to help find your devices. So then hopefully we'll be able to have Android-based AirTags that work similarly to the Apple AirTags. Yeah, very nice. AirTag will still work because it will be able to be found by your phone's Bluetooth. Oh, I've been and I have not switched to iOS because I'm an Android boy through and through and always will be. But I have really, really looked with jealousy at AirTags. They're so cool. The ability to put a tag on an object and then anywhere in the world that someone has an iPhone within range of that object, boom, that object's location is reported. I mean, the utility is obviously, is obvious. So
I'll say the other thing that's great is like we're going to have like there's two companies right now, Pebblebee and Chipolo, but they said by the end of the year there's going to be a bunch more partners because they're just kind of I think they're letting everybody make their own tags. So unlike AirTag where you just have to buy an Apple AirTag, there should be a bunch of form factors, sizes, charge.
I'm so happy.
All that stuff. So.
Yeah, so happy about this. It's such a cool functionality, so useful, and I've been like, I'm not switching to iOS. The ability to do Find My Device on just anything, and it works. It works with everyone's Android phone. I was just looking today. I couldn't find my freaking earbuds. And granted, an earbud case is pretty freaking small. Like, I don't know if there's a tag small enough to go on my earbud case, but like, oh man, I was like, oh, I can't find them. And of course, they were powered down. So I couldn't just locate them. Will it actually help you home in on the location? Because Find My Device just says, oh yeah, it's here, and they show you on a map. But if it's in a pile of blank, what's this guy? This guy's like, I don't want to lose my wife. Hey honey, put this tag on yourself. Oh no, that's her purse. I see. I'm imagining this guy. He's like, man, I hate it when I lose my wife. Hold on, just in case Liam Neeson needs to go find you.
I put a link in the Discord for the Google article.
Very cool. Thank you, Monty. Yeah, very excited about this. No, but it uses low-powered, long-range Bluetooth, so you can find the device. The iOS version does, so you can find the device if you're near it. You can home in on it.
Yeah, I linked you to the article, but you can do that here too.
Awesome. So next, here's what I need now, and I imagine this will happen, but sadly not on my existing. What I need is for earbud manufacturers to start integrating this into the charging case, right? I can't tell you how, I can tell you. It's 3 times in my life I've been, I really can't find my earbuds. Oh God, this is it. I've lost them for real this time. And each time I've found them. But one of these days I'm not going to find them. And if like needs to be built into the case. Okay, anyway. Barrick Berenson, thank you for a $5 super chat. Thanks for everything you do for the hobby, Joshua. I'm building a 3-inch toothpick. Should I do 2S or 3S? I think for a 3-inch toothpick, I would go for 3S. Like there are good 1S toothpicks, but I feel like for a 3-inch, I would probably go 3S. I'm gonna look on my Ultimate FPV shopping list at the sub 250 gram page, and I'm gonna look for the bind and flies, and I'm just gonna look. Now these aren't really toothpicks though. They're not really toothpicks, and these guys run 4S. What's a 3-inch toothpick? What's a bind and fly toothpick? X9 beta FPV. I don't know about that. The FPV Cycle TP3. Well, that's a toothpick. Now there's a 1S version. Is this the 1S version? $2S, 3S. I think 3S. Here's the 3. Yeah, here we go. So here's the 3S drivetrain from FPV Cycle. 1303, 5,000 kV motors. Yeah, this is what I would do. Let me zoom in on it for you. And this is well tested by Kebab. I don't know. Maybe it's a little out of date, perhaps. I don't know when he last updated this. Yeah, we still suggest running this quad on Betaflight 357. So that's how old this recommendation is. But I feel like 3S is a good place to be. If you wanted to, build a 1S toothpick, they're pretty cool. It's pretty amazing what you can do on 1S. But if I just had to pick, I'd take a 3S. And here's where I would start with my design. 1303, 5,000 kV motors, 3016 gem fan props, a 4S AIO flight controller, and a battery around 450 milliamp hour 3S. That's where I would be. Hey, Black Jungle, thank you for 5 Brazilian reais. Reais. Huh? Huh? Is it huh or huh? Anyway, reais, as we Americans say. Black Jungle is building a 7-inch. Why are you building a 4S 7-inch? It's weird, but okay. Black Jungle, why do you want to build weird quads? Why can't you build a normal quad? 4S 2507, 1700 kV, 4050 or 60 amp ESC. Trying to save money. Oh, well, that's why you're trying to save money. You build weird quads because you live in Brazil and you have to use reais to buy your parts. And the exchange rate is not good. Here's the thing. I'd wager that a good quality 40 amp ESC would be fine. Because 7-inch, you're doing 1700, excuse me, 1700 kV on 4S. I think that's going to be relatively sedate in terms of the power draw. Pardon me. Sorry, guys. But a bad quality 40 amp ESC won't be okay, because you're going to have surges over 40 amps. So it's a tough call. My rule of thumb with ESCs is bigger is usually better, because I don't trust ESC manufacturers. If there's an ESC like the Foxeer Reaper or the T-Motor F55 that I know has a reputation of just being beat on. I've seen 10-inch drones running on the T-Motor F55. And it's just I'm good. and it's a nominally a 55 amp ESC, but it just sits in there and it takes it. So I feel like that 40, 50, or 60 amps, it just depends on how good the ESC you're buying is. But if you're trying to save money, I think you should buy the 60 amp. Because a cheap 60 amp ESC is like, maybe it'll survive. But a cheap 40 amp ESC is probably cutting some corners. That's how I read that. Yeah. Jordil wants, thank you for $2 super chat. Jordil wants me to try to explain the 2024 GQ zipper system. Can I explain it? No. I don't understand it. I can like look at the webpage and like read it to you, but I feel like that's kind of insulting because you probably already did that.
Basically,
Blunty, do you understand
a spring GQ? Yeah, it's very easy. There's a spring GQ and a summer GQ. Okay, and then each person is going to rank on the summer GQ and the spring GQ. So the top person on the spring GQ gets put in first place on the final GQ zipper system. The top person on the summer GQ gets put in the second place. The second place person on the spring GQ gets put in the third place.
I see.
The second place person on the summer GQ gets put in the fourth place. If the second place person is the same, then they just skip that and go to the next person on the spring GQ. So it just goes back and forth, filling like a zipper into the center, which is the GQ.
No, that didn't seem that complicated. That was going to be more complicated than that. Yeah, so anyway, what you do is... Just repeat what you said. All right, thank you, Plenty. Jordal, does that make sense?
The GQ is the global qualifier.
It's not a fashion thing, Killdozer. It's the global qualifier. All right. We're caught up on the super chats. Let's take some other questions. Focus for Life says, Smoke Stopper didn't save my flight controller. Focus for Life, Smoke Stopper, it doesn't 100% guarantee catch every fault that could damage your flight controller. It's not 100%. It's like it's insurance, and it helps some of the time, but sometimes, you know, your shit blows up because you wired it up wrong. Or sometimes your shit blows up because your shit was defective. So, RIP your flight controller. Simple Lang. What will happen to the DJI 03 units if DJI gets banned in the USA? So, what Simple Lang is talking about is the Ban China CCP Drones Act. I can't remember the exact name of it. It is working its way through Congress. Blunty, what's the chances of it being passed? What's that website?
It's GovTrack.
GovTrack, that's it.
And there's the Countering CCP Drones Act.
Yeah. Let's see what we're up to here. Countering CCP Drones Act on GovTrack is currently...
It has not moved.
What's the
percent? So it's still 33%.
Where is that? Am I looking? Yeah, here we go. 33% chance of being enacted. I see. Interesting. So what this would do, without going into too much detail, is it doesn't outright ban DJI drones by name, but what it does do is it because like saying we're just banning this product would be a bridge too far. Instead, what they say is DJI drones may not use federal resources. Oh, well, that seems... I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like, the federal government is going to ban DJI drones from using federal resources. I mean, that's... okay. I don't like it, but I guess I see it. Except, and I don't know if this is explicit or implicit, maybe, Blunty, you can weigh in. One of the federal resources is the airwaves. And so basically it would de facto ban them in the U.S. Blunty, do you have anything to add to that or correct?
Yeah, essentially, you've heard the term covered list before, if you've heard us talk. but essentially there's a list that of companies that help China and are part of China and are part of foreign nationals that they don't want anybody in the U.S. to work with. So basically what they did is they made this act that would put DJI on a covered list on the FCC covered list. So there's like an FCC document, it's 1601 in the U.S. code. And basically, there's a determination of communications equipment or services posing national security risks. It's basically like a page that is essentially a covered list for the FCC. It's like, hey, here's the people that we don't want to approve. Mm-hmm. And the bill would just add a section that specifically says DJI or affiliates are not allowed to be covered by this, covered by the FCC. And I would add, anything they do, telecommunications, video services, surveillance, software, etc., are all banned by approval from the FCC.
So it's explicit. I was wrong when I said it was implicit. They're explicitly banned from using the federally regulated airwaves. Like, they can't get Part 15 certification. They can't be used. They basically can't. Their radios aren't allowed. Let's see. Blunty's got this image up. So it would, in fact, ban DJI drones. Now, what effect would this have? And Blunty, you're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. What effect would this have on already purchased equipment? Would this be going forward, or would this be retroactive?
This, as my understanding is, this retroactively removes FCC certification for all DJI drones and devices in the entire United States of America. Now, to an end user, I don't know the responsibility of an end user to understand that they are not Part 15. You know what I mean? That they're not covered under Part 15.
Right. If you buy a piece of equipment, and at the time that you buy it, it has a legitimate Part 15 certification, you're not obligated to keep checking every time you use it, whether that, because it's so rare that Part 15 is ever withdrawn.
It would be insane to require every user to check every Part 15 device every time they boot it or use that device, right?
Right. So realistically, everyone who already owns a DJI device will keep using it. I mean, like, could the federal government go to DJI? I mean, anything could happen. Could they say, hey, look, you guys, all your shit's no longer legal. We're going to need you to push a firmware update that disables all this stuff in the U.S. I can't imagine DJI doing that. But it's not incomprehensible that such a thing could happen.
I think the main effect we'll see is moving forward, they won't be able to sell some of these devices through certain companies in the United States. And I say through certain companies because, I mean, they've been selling the Cadex Vista forever without FCC certification. That never had FCC certification. So if you're worried about being able to buy a Vista or an Air unit or an O3 Air unit or goggles, I suspect that those will just continue to be sold, just like the Vistas continued to be sold for years and years and years without a certification anyway. Yeah. That would be my guess.
So isn't there some company in Texas or somewhere that already is essentially a DJI front company? They've licensed... I'm using very casual language here. Lawyers, please don't sue me. But they've basically licensed DJI tech, and some of the people I was talking to wondered whether this was DJI preparing for this to go through, and that essentially, as soon as this goes through, suddenly the same equipment is available. But it's not DJI anymore. Now it's, USA Texas Drones Inc. But it's all just DJI stuff.
Anzu Robotics.
Anzu. Thank you, Blunty.
Yeah.
My God. You increase the quality of the live streams with all the facts, with all your facts and information.
And you can clearly see there, and I can tell you, I've confirmed on the back end, I've talked to people who know how all this stuff is working. Basically, they signed a single deal with DJI to license a bunch of the drones. One time. This does not cover any future software. This does not cover any future hardware. This does not cover anything like that. But my understanding of the deal is, and I got this information after the last time we talked about this, essentially what happened is DJI said, okay, here's the code for these devices. Do what you will with it because we want to make this deal. So they gave these chunks of code to these companies so they could run these devices. And then all the callback locations in the code just call back to ANSU's servers instead of DJI servers, and they were transparent enough with the code that ANSU felt comfortable licensing these and saying that they cannot contact DJI.
Oh, so the idea is, this is different than I thought. Thank you for pointing this out. What this is if you're like in the U.S., the federal government, the military, and you want a DJI drone, but you're either not allowed to use a DJI drone because federal agencies are prohibited, or you just have security concerns, then you could theoretically pay through the nose for one of these. Actually, it's maybe not as bad. This is the thermal camera, so it's not as bad as it seems. But it's,
I think from what I've seen, they're about 2 to 2.5 times the price so far.
Yeah, so you're paying through the nose for a DJI drone from Anzu Robotics, but you can be confident it's not phoning home to China. And so the theory that some people had was that DJI could create a licensing deal like this with a U.S. manufacturer, quote unquote, well, a front company, and that U.S. company would be the face, and they would no longer be DJI drones. They would be some other drone, but DJI still manufactures, and they've sidestepped this this prohibited list. That's just speculation. So where are we at? Well, one place we're at is that this bill currently has a 33% chance, according to GovTrack, of being passed. So still 2-to-1 odds that it will not pass, which, I mean, we would like better odds, but not great odds that it'll pass. Excuse me. DJI is going to fight this. They're going to fight this in court. If they're not, I thought I heard maybe they had already started like legal challenges. They're going to fight this. They have a lot of money to fight this in court and try and get this tossed in some way. If it does go through, all your equipment that you currently have probably will keep working indefinitely. I don't think a scenario where DJI agrees to voluntarily disable this stuff is likely, and I don't think a scenario where the federal government goes after end users for using this stuff is very likely. Although, who knows? But getting new stuff may be challenging. So, it's a hell of a world where such a thing could be done. Because, like, obviously, like, think about all those poor little doggos we see saved on the news with thermal cameras and drones. There's a lot of good work being done with DJI drones. They are very, very good at what they do and very inexpensive. And I know there are concerns about... I don't know. I'm not sure how overblown the security concerns are, especially to the average person. Like, if I was, a member of the president's cabinet, if I was, a spy, if I was someone, of interest who went to interesting secret places that I didn't want anyone to know about, I probably wouldn't bring DJI equipment with me, right? I would be like, yeah, no, that I don't know, that's just too risky. But for a lot of people, I think there's really no meaningful risk. And to take all of that away is a pretty bold step. It feels like this is a lot of grandstanding, and it is to win points with constituents and with the public, and not necessarily a meaningful way of mitigating a specific threat. Go ahead, Monty.
I just want to point out that, to my knowledge, and still nobody has ever been able to show me this. I did a lot of research on this. There has never been a single, one time, ever documented case of a DJI drone sending any data back to China. You can put a cage around it. You can measure all the radio signals coming out of it. You can look at the USB feed. You can sniff everything on it. Nothing has ever sent anything back to China. Ever. It's never happened with the DJI drone. Show me a documented case. It's made up.
You talking about like video?
Anything
like obviously,
other than telemetry data of the drone that
yeah,
doesn't give you anything
obviously
interesting.
It sends some things, because like when you connect to the DJI Fly app, it downloads some shit, like I don't know,
there's
like
no audio, there's no video, like what are they getting?
Well, sure.
Like it's a fantasy made up for political reasons. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and like when they said the military can't use DJI drones anymore, I was like, I get that. You know, if I'm a a general and I'm thinking about all the possibilities, and my job is to think, well, what if we ended up in a war with China? Right? I know there's people out there who are like, yeah, a war with China, let's do it. And I'm like, no, calm down. But like, let's say you're thinking about the possibilities, and you've got all these people who are using DJI drones to just for scouting and other things, and then DJI just goes, oh, we're in a war now. Okay, all your drones don't work. Well, suddenly your capabilities have been significantly reduced. And you go, well, okay, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to find alternatives now. And I was like, I see why the federal government or the military might not want their people using DJI drones. But like, as far as banning it for the general public, I think it's a way more negative than it is positive. You know? And I think it's posturing. That's my take. Anyway. So. Let's see here. Dionic says, I'm a noob getting sim hours in, flying liftoff micro. I'm getting really comfortable outside, but inside I'm struggling. Do you have any tips? Yeah, flying inside is way harder than it seems like it ought to be. When you're outside, there's all this room, and it feels like you're flying very precisely, but it turns out you're not. And as soon as you get inside, you suddenly realize just how precisely you're not flying, and you're crashing into walls and shit. It's just a matter of experience and stick time. You just have to get better at controlling your altitude, controlling your throttle. The good news is, like, the more you work at it, the better you're going to get. And as you fly indoors, you're going to get better and better at flying outdoors. But you have to just slow down, be precise, and be able to do it slowly before you try and do it quickly and crash. Craig N. wants to know, where else in the world other than China are drone electronics manufactured? Not many places. There are some movement to build supply chains and manufacturing chains outside of China. There are almost no hobbyists who actually give a shit. Hobbyists just want to spend the least amount of money possible. And the way to do that is to go through China. So pretty much all the hobby stuff goes through China. But when you look at governments, militaries, and so forth, there is more push in that direction. So you see things like the whole NDAA, and I don't even know what that stands for. But NDAA basically is a government thing in the U.S. to try to disallow telecommunications equipment manufactured in China. So like a video transmitter and camera for an FPV drone, if it was made in China, it wouldn't be NDAA compliant. And you see companies like Orca, and they've got up on their webpage this NDAA compliant control link and video link that they're trying to sell, I assume, to governments and military, because it costs so much more. It costs like 3 times, 5 times more. I don't actually know. I may be just making that number up. But it's like way more expensive than hobby stuff. And hobbyists have no interest in paying more for that stuff. So, but it's all from China. And even a lot of the government and military stuff is from China. Like you see iFlight drones and Gepard drones in pictures and videos coming out of Ukraine. And like, I assume that that's just all stuff made in China and bought on the retail market. Jeremy Oversek wants to know, how do ESCs get programmed? There are 4 of them. What protocol is between the ESCs and the flight controller? Jeremy, the protocol is D-Shot. And D-Shot is used to make the motors spin, but also to do some basic configuration of the ESC, like the motor direction. D-Shot can reverse the motor direction. Now, what's D-Shot? I just told you. It's D-Shot. Well, what's D-Shot? Ha! Well, that's a different question. Let's see here. Timothy Conlon says, I have HD0 and I'm trying to do analog, but all I'm getting is a white screen. Timothy, there is a bug in the HD0 goggles that I have encountered, and it's absolutely infuriating. I want to let you know that I have pushed this back to HD0, and Carl has said, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to claim oh, I made this happen, but I have pushed this several times and been like, hey, this is a real problem. This is really bothering me. It's bothering other people. The last time I brought it up, Carl was like, yep, this is a big deal. I'm going to try and work hard on getting this fixed in a recent firmware update. So hopefully this will be fixed soon. The bug manifests as when you switch to the analog module, you get a white screen. And I don't know what causes this, but I have fixed it in the past by setting the camera to NTSC and the goggles to NTSC. In the HD0 goggles, in one of the menus, I don't remember exactly which one, you can change the analog from NTSC to PAL or vice versa. So in your camera, set it to you have to have a camera that is also switchable NTSC or PAL, or the camera has to be NTSC by default. But I'm going to guess that because you're getting the white screen, your camera is PAL. So the first thing you have to do is you have to get another analog receiver so you can switch your camera to PAL, to NTSC, because otherwise, you have to have one of those little joysticks that lets you configure the camera. It's a bunch of hoops to jump through, but if you do jump through it, that has worked for me. I'm not going to say 100% of the time, just because I'm not certain of that, but I believe it's worked for me basically 100% of the time. And hopefully that bug gets fixed in the future. Okay. Thomas Nagel, any idea why my DVR color drops out in my the color drops out in my DVR when I see color in the goggles? Yeah, Fat Shark DVR is known for having worse image quality than you see in the goggles, and so sometimes the signal the DVR gets is not good enough for it to keep track of the color information. That's what I would say. It's been a long time though. Like the HDO 2.1 should have the updated DVR, which is supposed to be better. But the short answer to your question is that what you see in the goggles and what the DVR sees are not necessarily the same. I got a question here that I noticed. Plenty, I don't even know if you flagged it, but yeah, you did. Unbanned Sky wants to know about the Red Bull drone speed record being broken. I just watched this video today, actually. It's a super cool video.
This is a high-speed drone, and this is
you should watch
moments
it.
Before I attempted to break the Guinness World Record for the fastest drone in the world.
So this is Luke Baximo Bell, and this is a video about how he developed a drone that beat the Red Bull, the Dutch drone gods, Red Bull drone speed record. I really enjoyed all of the insight in this video into the story of how he developed the drone, because every time we talk about one of these high speed runs, somebody out there is like, whatever, you just go fast. It's not that hard. And he shows all of the failures and mistakes, and then he shows all of the things he had to do to get the speed. I'm sure he doesn't show all of them, but all of the things that he did to try to get the speed up to where it was. And it's a huge amount of work. So when people look at one of these things and say, they notice that these high-speed drones all kind of look the same because the aerodynamics require it. And they're like, well, he just ripped off so-and-so. Ha! Good luck. Good luck. Just, yeah, why don't you do it? Just go rip off so-and-so. 7 burned up ESCs later, you realize how much work this really is. It's a huge amount of work. So I really appreciated in this video Luke giving us all an insight into just how much work it is to try and find the exact combination of parts to go as fast as he needs to go. Now, how does this compare to the Red Bull Dutch Drone Gods effort? Well, obviously it went faster, right? I still think, and obviously credit where credit's due, right? It went faster. But I still think we have to acknowledge that the Dutch Drone Gods did some really interesting things. Because in addition to making a drone that goes 200 kilometers plus an hour, the Dutch Drone Gods also developed a relay control link that let them fly all the way around the race course while maintaining video signal. Right? So they've got their control link relay system, they've got their high speed, and they've got endurance. How did the endurance... he actually had an endurance. Here we go. So he did 7.5 kilometers at 180 kilometers per hour. Actually, I suspect that would do for the Red Bull shot. I'm not sure if his endurance is as good as the Dutch Drone Gods. Maybe it is. Hey, Cricket FPV, good to see you, man. Long time, long time. Hope you're doing well. So, I think it's really cool that Luke Bell beat the Dutch Drone Gods record. I think there's every chance that the Dutch Drone Gods could come back and beat his record, you know? And I think that would be super cool too. It's not about like, oh, who am I rooting for? I'm rooting for everyone because they're doing really cool shit. But I do think the Dutch Drone Gods deserve credit for the totality of what they did. And just saying they built a drone that goes 300 kilometers per hour or whatever it was, I don't think that that really sums up how cool what the Dutch Drone Gods did was. The Red Bull drone, as Pulex says, it followed their car, it tracked the car, it produced good cinematic footage, right? It was able to slow down, it was able to go fast. The camera was on a gimbal, so it could change the camera angle. I believe Luke did that at the end of the video as well. It had the custom control link that let it fly all the way around the course. It did a really, really cool thing. And when you have people competing to do really cool things, you end up, you know, integrating and getting to a really cool place. One IFPV thinks they should share the tech they used to get those records back to the community. Again, I gotta say, One Eye, I mean, you know, it's a useless dick measuring contest. Fair enough. I don't blame the Dutch Drone Gods for not sharing their tech. Like, their livelihood depends on them being able to build drones and get shots. And somebody who puts this stuff out there as open source, mad respect for that, obviously goes without saying. But the Dutch Drone Gods, let's say that they have a 6-month or maybe a 1-year head start before other people start building things and mimicking what they're doing. But for a few short months, the Dutch Drone Gods are the only people on Earth who have a drone that can go, whatever, 200, 300 kilometers an hour and follow a race car around a track. And they get money. And they're able to sort of pay their bills because they did that. I don't blame them for not just putting it all out there for free so their competitors can eat their lunch.
I mean, yeah, I think that's why a lot of people hate capitalism, because there's a driver to hide things from other people, keep your tech as private as long as possible, and make as much money as possible off of it. So.
But the flip side is, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think we need to argue pro and anti-capitalism. There's
I'm just
obviously.
saying, if that wasn't the case, you could share this stuff, but you have to keep it and hide it,
But
and use it instead of sharing it and developing it faster, so the whole community develops the technology faster and has a higher understanding. It doesn't require barriers to entry, like getting on a company that has the tech, or trying to get the tech secondhand, or redevelop it, or take pictures and redocument it, or whatever, right? So.
But here's the counter argument. Like, they first developed their relay system for that downhill mountain bike race, and that was sponsored. How much of this development wouldn't have happened, or wouldn't have happened as quickly, without the sponsorship dollars? Now, and I realize that right now we're looking at a dude who did it for free, who, by the way, as far as I know, also hasn't published his STLs and stuff. Although if I'm wrong about that, I'd love to be wrong, because as I was watching this video, I was like, I bet I could build one of these. But as far as I know, Luke hasn't published his shit either. And I don't know if he's done that for capitalist reasons or for other reasons of his own. So, like, obviously, to some degree, like, we know that Quad Mover was building high-speed drones, probably still is, right? Wasn't doing it, as far as I know, to make money or anything, just doing it because it's awesome. But I think the Dutch drone gods came up with a novel and unique solution, a package. The package, each of the individual parts maybe wasn't as novel, but the package was novel. And I wonder, whether we should give some credit for that to Red Bull. Anyway. I would love it if the Dutch drone gods, after, maybe 6 months or a year, after they enjoy their first mover advantage, and as sort of other stuff starts to come up, I'd love it if they started publishing some of this stuff, maybe at a point where they had recouped a little bit and weren't at as much of a risk. I don't know. Oh my goodness, it's 9:55. We're 5 minutes to the end of the stream. Holy crap. Time has flown by. Let me make sure we're definitely got some super chats we need to take care of. Roberto says, I bought a used quad with ELRS and I need to retrieve the binding phrase. You can't. You can't get the binding phrase back. The binding phrase is a one-way hash. What you should do is you should just put your own binding phrase on it. Just pick a binding phrase and put your own binding phrase on it. You can see what the UID is, and in later versions of ExpressLRS, you can type the UID in manually. So you can bind to it without changing the UID, but you shouldn't. Just come up with your own binding phrase and put it in. Because as Black Jungle says, you can grab the UID and use it. Yeah, you can, but you're not going to remember that. Come up with a binding phrase that you'll remember and just put it in. Lindsay Moore, thank you for a $10 super chat. I changed my motors from 2207 1800 kV to 2207.5 1950 kV. I arm my quad and it goes to full throttle. Lindsay, we need more information. When you say it goes to full throttle, do you have the props? Props are on, because you say props are correct direction. I'm gonna guess one of your motors is spinning the wrong direction, or I'm gonna guess that your motors are starting to accelerate, but it's not literally taking off. And if you were to try to hover it, they would hover. It would hover fine. Lindsay, I think you should email me so we can talk about the details of this, because it's going to require some back and forth. Email me, Lindsay, jb@joshuabardwell.com. Okay. Skesix, thank you for a $2 super chat. What would a Bardwell soundtrack be for a movie? Asks CJ. I'm a big fan of I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer. I say I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer. It doesn't mean I'm like, oh, I've memorized all these facts about him. I just mean that when I hear a Hans Zimmer soundtrack, I go, oh, yes! Yes! I love Hans Zimmer. Jeez. Hans Zimmer's so good. So, I would pick Hans Zimmer if I had to pick somebody. Yeah, he's so good. I would encourage anyone Hans Zimmer live. Where is the it's on YouTube. I paid for this. There's a recording on YouTube. I'm not going to play it because it's copyrighted. There's a recording on YouTube of a whole medley. Hans Zimmer did the live show, and he plays songs from all of his movies. And what's really cool is, like, you probably know, you think of Hans Zimmer and you think of Interstellar, right? But Hans Zimmer has done, so many movies. And they're all different styles, each of which is recognizably Hans Zimmer, but not all of which is like, oh yeah, that Interstellar style. He's such a virtuoso. So I really enjoy that, the whole concert. Heinik Jemelik says, I like flying lighter 5-inch 550 gram with 2207.5. I tried smaller drones, but the only one I liked so far was the Crux 3.5. Are there smaller drones that would have flight characteristics similar to a lighter 5-inch? Yeah. I think 3.5 inch is a really, really good place to be. And I think you should play with 3.5 inch and find the weight of a 3.5 inch that gives you the flight characteristics you want. Just use bigger and smaller batteries on a 3.5 inch. And you'll find a weight and a prop loading, a disc loading, that gives you the flight characteristics you want. But I really think 3.5 inch is a good place for you to be. Aber the Ham. I cannot comment on Drake and Kendrick, but I appreciate the $10 donation. Folks, that's going to bring us to the end of the stream. What, Blondie?
Just going to say they are not like us. Anyway, continue.
Is that a reference that I don't get?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that. That's going to bring us to the end of the stream, folks. Thank you so much for coming out on a Friday night. And now that it's 10 o'clock, I can go get ready to go to the club. And I'll be at the club around 11:30 when things are getting hot. And I'll be getting loose with the juice. And later, maybe we'll, go to bed. I don't know. I've flown out of. Cjo thinks I missed a super chat, Blunty. Did I miss a super chat?
No, that was the soundtrack chat. You definitely talked about that.
Yeah, no, I did that. I don't think I missed a super chat, man. Well, if I did, sucks to be you. All right, folks. I will see you this Sunday at the normal time. Good night, everybody.